3 spine-chilling terrifying tales. Discover the sinister secrets of haunted nights alone in the quiet suburban sprawl just outside Chicago. Sarah's life spun on a delicate thread, the mundane draped in an ominous shroud of terror. Every night, while her 2 young children slept soundly in their cramped bedrooms, she navigated through the darkness of the graveyard shift at the local supermarket. But tonight felt different. As dusk settled, a rustling sound broke the calm outside her small brick home. At first, she brushed it off, a raccoon maybe. But as the clock ticked toward midnight, the churning anxiety clawed at her gut. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, a text from an unfamiliar number lighting up the screen. "I see you." The word slithered under her skin like ice-cold fingers. Panic gripped her heart and she scanned the surroundings, a chill inundating the air. Shadows danced along the walls, and an oppressive weight seemed to settle in the room, like a dark cloud looming. The knock at the door began light, but escalated quickly into frantic thuds that echoed through the house. Each strike sent ripples of dread coursing through her veins. Who could it be at this hour? Worry etched into her features. She approached the door, her palms clammy, heart racing as she brushed her fingers over the cold brass knob. Was it Mr. Hawkins next door? His eerie stories often hung in the air longer than his visits, tales of hidden horrors that felt almost too real. The man seemed to hide secrets of his own, which only deepened her trepidation. Gripping her phone, she hesitated as another knock broke through her thoughts, this time more insistent. The voice floated through the door, a familiar tone, yet twisted as if warped by fear. "Sarah, it's me, let me in." Anxiety knotted in her stomach like a snake. What kind of friend knocks at this hour? She could almost hear his shallow breath through the door, desperation weaving through his words. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the night deepened, Sarah weighed her options. Shadows had begun to coil around her thoughts, and everywhere she turned, she felt watchful eyes. Memories of other neighbors in the community bubbled up, names she'd heard whispered in hushed, fearful tones, disappearances, stories entwined with dark folklore lurking like specters just out of sight. Something stirred in the pit of her stomach, urgent and alive. Was this all connected? The weight of the atmosphere helped it sink in. She was not in control of the events unfolding. Just as she decided enough was enough, determined to escape with her children, a final urgent knock reverberated through the house. One more calling of her name, laced with a jagged edge of despair that belonged to a figure she once trusted, now cloaked in darkness. Panic surged as she turned toward the door, her breath hitching. The connection turned from extreme to chilling. What if this familiar face was the monster she never expected? The shadows were closing in. What would she uncover before it was too late? The urgency in Sarah's chest hammered like a wild drum. She stood frozen, her eyes glued to the door, heart thudding as if trying to escape her body. The voice at the door didn't sound right. It twisted in a way that sent a fresh wave of dread crashing over her. Maybe it was just nervousness, but what if it wasn't? "Sarah, please. You have to let me in." The voice rattled her resolve. It was Jake, her old friend from high school. But his tone held a darkness she had never heard. It felt wrong. The words danced on the edge of confusion and fear, urging her to take action, yet making her hesitate. She took a step back, glancing over her shoulder at the hallway where her kids slept, blissfully unaware. She couldn't let panic rule her decisions, but it clawed at her instincts. In the brief silence, the world felt paused, breath hitching in her throat as the shadows writhed through the dimly lit hallway, mocking her doubts. "Jake." Her voice came out weak, barely a whisper. Memories of laughter and shared secrets flickered in her mind, threaded with images of him hurrying out of town almost a year ago, leaving everything behind. Why had he returned now? Why was he here in the dead of night? A terrible crash echoed behind her, breaking the spell, like glass shattering on the floor. She spun around, eyes wide, searching for the source. The knock at the door swelled into a frantic rhythm, the urgency palpable. Instinct screamed at her to flee, but she needed to know. What is going on? She shouted through the door, but the familiar voice transformed into something guttural. I can't explain. Just let me in. They're coming. The air thickened with a sudden stench, something rancid and moldy creeping up her nostrils, intertwining with an ancient, dusty odor that filled their home. Reflexively, she stepped toward the door, heart racing with conflicting instincts. Her friend needed her. But how could she know he was the same guy who once shared popcorn at midnight movies? Who's coming? She demanded, fear lacing her voice. Jake's answer was a desperate cry, they want you, Sarah. The air turned electric. A deep rumble vibrated through the wood of the house, the floor trembling underfoot. Strange sounds echoed like whispers emanating from the very walls, words twisted and broken, almost unintelligible. It enveloped her, pulling her into a chasm of absolute terror. Sarah steadied her breath, frantically glancing around the room. She could feel it, a presence lurking, inching closer, waiting. With one hand gripping the doorknob, she took a deep breath. The world was a blur, each second dilating in fear. The darkness in the corners seemed to ripple, twisting into shapes beyond comprehension, as if shadows could become corporeal monsters. Whatever was outside threatened not just her but everything she held dear. Please just let me in. Jake's voice now formed a sorrowful melody that struck tight chords deep within her heart. She knew she was running out of time. What should she do? Trust him and open the door, inviting whatever darkness might follow? Or retreat into the suffocating shadows of her own home, taking the chance to hide what she couldn't control? Just as her determination flickered, the door buckled with an explosive force. Heart racing, she flung herself back, anticipating the worst. The darkness roared to life behind her as fear shattered through her resolve, filling her veins with ice. As the door splintered open, Sarah knew she had only moments to decide. What awaited her on the other side? And then, the shadows whispered her name. The door exploded inwards, splintering wood and sending splinters flying into the air like shrapnel. Sarah barely ducked in time, her heart racing as she stumbled back. A figure stood there, the shadows clinging to him like a second skin. Jake? She forced out, voice trembling. His eyes were wide and glistening, but something sinister twisted beneath the surface. You shouldn't have opened the door. He pushed forward, forcing Sarah back, his breath coming out in sharp bursts. They're inside now. A chill swept through the room, wrapping around Sarah like icy fingers. Panic clawed at her throat as she glanced behind Jake. The air grew heavier, something was pushing against the walls, as if the very structure of her home was alive. What are you talking about? She shouted, desperation knitted through her voice. Who's coming? The flickering lights overhead caught Jake's face in jarring flashes. For a moment, she saw the boy she used to know, his laughter echoing like a distant memory. But that fleeting moment vanished, replaced by an inhuman dread. Listen to me. There's no time. He cried, glancing nervously over his shoulder. They'll sense fear, and then before he could finish, the shadows behind him surged forward, creeping like a black tide, curling under the doorframe, slithering into the room. Sarah's eyes widened, and she stumbled back, her feet frozen in place. Just get inside. She ordered. A part of her, instinctively protective, screamed to compel him past that threshold, to shut out the night outside. But her mind warred against the edge of reason. The shadows slithered up her legs, icy tendrils grazing her skin, sending waves of revulsion coursing through her. They twisted and writhed, forming looping shapes, mocking her as they hissed in broken whispers. Sarah, the kids! Jake shouted, rushing to her side. He seized her arm, but she felt the cold seep from him, inching through the connection. We have to hide. No. A thought struck her, dark and menacing. The very essence of her home felt violated, corrupted. The shadows were taunting her, as if they knew her every thought, every fear. Why did you come back, Jake? She asked, her voice rising. Why now? You left us. His expression shifted, becoming a mask of despair. I didn't leave. I was taken. I didn't want to come. But they with a sudden violent roar, the shadows surged, a wave crashing forth, slamming Sarah into the wall. The air charged with an overwhelming malice, suffocating and thick. She gasped, trying to breathe, trying to fight, but it felt like fighting against crushing darkness. Get the kids! Jake shouted again, breaking through the chaos. They'll come for them. The fear lodged in her throat. Her mind screamed at her to run, to save her children, but a deeper terror rooted her to the spot. The shadows threaded through every crevice of the room, creeping toward the hallway, toward the rooms where her children slept peacefully unaware. A raw instinct drove her forward, breaking through the panic. No! She shouted, finding the strength to battle the oppression swirling around her. She shoved Jake aside, lunging toward the darkened hallway. But as she ran, a horrible clarity pierced her. What if it was too late? What if they were already there? As she burst into the hallway, terror roared inside her. The whispers in the walls grew louder, consuming her sanity. Dread coiled in her stomach, urging her to turn back. But where would she find safety? Would she trust Jake again, or was he transformed into something unrecognizable? And what shadows were closing in around her children, waiting in the corners, hungry for the softness of their dreams? In the dim light, she could barely discern the door to their rooms. Each step felt as if she was leaving the last shreds of safety behind her. But she couldn't let them go. Not now. What if those shadows were waiting for her answer? And as she approached the door, what if she was already too late? The doorknob felt cold and slick in Sarah's trembling hand. She hesitated, her breath hitching in her throat. The whispers had intensified, swirling around her like a cyclone of dread. Each murmur was a distorted echo of her deepest fears, gnawing at her sanity. It felt as if the shadows were monitoring every tremor of her resolve. Mom! A voice called from behind the door, soft and innocent. An aching warmth surged through her chest. Evelyn! She gasped, her voice breaking. I'm coming. Forcing the door open, she stumbled into her daughter's room. The glow of a small nightlight cast a feeble brightness that offered little comfort. Evelyn sat up in bed, her wide, trusting eyes gleaming in the dimness. A stuffed bear clutched close to her chest, the only defense against the growing darkness. Mom, what's wrong? Her daughter whispered, blinking away sleep. I need you to listen carefully, honey. Sarah hesitated, swallowing back a wave of fear. Before she could speak, ice-cold fingers crept around her ankles. The shadows had entered, slick as oil, curling and embracing her like old friends. Panic spiked as she pulled away, desperately trying to shield her daughter. Evelyn, we have to go. She shouted, urgency clawing at her voice. But something pulled at her, holding her back, the dread of the unknown lurking just outside the room. Where are we going? Evelyn's voice trembled, and the shadows began to echo her unease, seething and hissing as they grew bolder, encroaching on their sanctuary. Sarah knelt, clutching Evelyn's shoulders. Listen, whatever happens, don't look at them. Just trust me. But the dark shapes were already moving, whispering promises that seemed to seep into the walls, pulling at the fabric of reality. They slipped under the bed, swirling around the room, bathing it in a heavy darkness. With every second, it felt like the house itself was groaning in pain, as if the very wood and nails were sharply aware of their sinister inhabitants. She shot a terrified glance at the door. Was Jake still there? Was he safe? Or had he become yet another tool of the shadows? Mom! Evelyn whimpered, her little fists tightening on her stuffed bear. What's wrong with Jake? Sarah fought back tears. I don't know, but we can't stay here. Just as she turned to grab her daughter's hand, a dark figure materialized in the doorway. Jake. His face twisted and warped, eyes pulsing like they were trapped behind glass. A growl rumbled from deep within him, not like the voice she once knew but something infinitely more primal. Get away from her. He barked, advancing into the room. No, stop. Sarah screamed, but her voice was drowned out by the menace swirling around her. The shadows pushed against her, tendrils creeping closer, fueled by her terror. Mom, please. Evelyn cried, recoiling from Jake, her tiny face alight with fear. With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah lunged between them, heart racing. You're not him. You're not my Jake. No. I'm here to help. He shouted, desperation mingling with rage. You just don't understand. But before he could finish, the shadows exploded into the room, racing toward them, a mass of icy claws reaching for anything warm. White-hot panic flooded through Sarah. She had to make a choice who to trust as the shadows began to envelop the space, howling with a hunger that twisted in her gut. Don't look at them. She cried, dragging Evelyn close, shielding her body with her own. The noise became deafening, her heartbeat sinking with the frenzied whispers, a cacophony of hunger and fear. In that moment, the entire world began to close in, suffocating her. And while she stood there, enveloped in turmoil, a fierce decision gripped her heart. I'll burn this house down before I let them take you. But what ignited within her could just be the spark that would summon greater horrors. Would her determination mean salvation or doom? That terrifying question lingered as the first flicker of flame began to dance at her fingertips. The flames licked at her fingers, their heat both foreign and familiar. Sarah's heart thudded violently in her chest as she felt the surge of power, yet dread coiled tightly in her gut. She couldn't let the shadows take Evelyn. The darkness writhed, thrashing against her resolve, almost recoiling from the flicker of light. Mom! Evelyn cried, her little voice barely piercing through the tumult of chaos. What are you doing? Trust me. Keep your eyes closed. Sarah shouted, the flames now crackling, pushing away the shadows that lingered by the edges of the room. The whispers dimmed as if afraid of the fire's warmth. She shoved her daughter into the corner, shielding her from both the shadows and the unpredictable flames. Jake, he stood frozen, caught in a snare of dark energy. His body trembled, the growl still rumbling low like distant thunder. Sarah, please. His voice almost broke, fragmented like the glass in a long-shattered window. No! She exclaimed, feeling the hatred rise within her. You're not him. You can't be. The truth twisted, branching out with a darkness she didn't want to grab hold of. As the fire's glow illuminated the room, it painted the corners in a haunting red. The shadows seemed to huddle closer together, their hissing growing angrier, desperate to encroach upon the light. The air thickened, tainted with the smell of burning wood and something far more nauseating, a rancid stench of the things that crawled in the dark. Mom, I'm scared. Evelyn whimpered, burying her face in her hands. I know, baby, but you have to trust. The flames flickered violently, threatening to extinguish as a gust rushed into the space. Her eye caught a shape crawling from under the bed, an amorphous mass shifting and writhing, a serpent of shadows. It slithered toward her, each movement exuding a chill that clawed at her skin. No! Get away! The flicker of fire surged, and without thinking, she thrust her hand forward. The flames burst forth, bright and demanding, enveloping the shadow. It shrieked, dissolving into a puff of darkness, leaving nothing but the faint echo of despair hanging in the room's air. More. She felt empowered by the surge. Don't let them close in. But Jake stepped forward, still caught in the throes of whatever dark magic had twisted him. You don't understand. They're not just shadows. They'll stay away. She shouted, the fire coiling around her fist as she prepared to strike again. Then, she felt a cold breeze sweep through the room. Time froze. Her heart dropped. It wasn't just the shadows anymore. The door to the hallway creaked open slowly as if unveiling a new horror. A figure appeared, cloaked in darkness, too tall, too thin. It moved with unnatural grace, stepping into the light while shadows clung to its form like a second skin. Sarah. The voice was a rasp, wet and decaying, echoing off the walls. "Let me take her from you," Evelyn shrieked, the sound piercing through Sarah like a knife. The air grew heavier, and the flames dwindled, flickering in fear as it loomed. "Mom! Help me!" Evelyn's cry was raw, filled with panic and pure terror. Seeing her daughter so vulnerable ignited a rage within Sarah she had not believed possible. "You won't take her. I swear, I'll fight to my last breath." But the figure just smiled, a stretching grin that grew impossibly wide. "Then let the game begin." The shadows surged, and the light flickered dangerously, leaving Sarah to question whether the fire's warmth could last against the incoming tide. She had to act. Decisions were boiling over as the figure lurked closer, its dark presence closing around them like a vice. Would she be able to protect her daughter? As fear gripped her once more, shadows hovered at her feet, watching, waiting. Just how deep was their influence? The room felt colder as reality blurred, and dread crawled back. A choice loomed ahead, but which path led to salvation, and which to ruin? The figure slid closer, its long, spindly fingers extending toward Evelyn, eager to grasp her. The shadows danced around it, pulsing with a dark rhythm that echoed in Sarah's ears, drowning out her thoughts. "You can save her, you know," it whispered, the voice thick like molasses, sweetly sickening. "Just let the fire go." As if in response, the flames flickered again, wavering under the weight of temptation. Sarah's heart thundered, terror mixing with the newfound power coursing through her veins. "Never," she spat, glaring at the figure as it laughed, the sound like glass breaking. "Your little fire is no match for what lurks in the dark," it taunted, reaching further. The air grew cold, and she could feel her resolve threatening to splinter. "Mom! Please!" Evelyn's voice was desperate, tears squeezing through her clenched eyelids. "Don't let it take me. Hold on, baby." Sarah gasped, pushing the words past a lump in her throat. The shadows pulsed like a living thing, pushing against the fire, trying to extinguish it. She tightened her grip around the heat, feeling its warmth seeping into her skin, filling her with a reckless courage. Jake suddenly seized as if jolted back to life, his eyes wide with clarity. "Sarah! Listen. You'll lose yourself if you keep using it. You have to fight. I can't let her go." The growl snaked through her, vibrating with despair. "Not to this thing." And she threw her arm forward, releasing an explosion of flames that roared in defiance. The fire launched outward, engulfing the shadowy figure. It shrieked, reverberating against the walls, but the shadows surrounding it fought back with a hunger Sarah had never known. The light struggled to penetrate the inky depths, flickering dangerously as if gasping for breath. "Your fire can't burn what is already dead," it screamed, twisting away from the flames, pulling shadows back in an eerie dance. "You think you can keep the dark at bay? It's all around you," waiting. Sarah's stomach dropped. She felt the walls tightening, suffocating in the encroaching darkness. She turned away, desperately searching for a way out, to shield Evelyn from this horror that threatened to consume them whole. "What do I do?" she whispered, panic rising. "Use the fire," Jake shouted, suddenly invigorated. "It's weakening. You have to burn through it." The shadows shivered, recoiling from the intense heat. Sarah could feel the pull of the darkness trying to swallow her will. She remembered the haunting whispers from her nightmares, the way the shadows coaxed and prodded, seeking to exploit her fears. Her heart raced but then steadied with a newfound resolve. "I will not let you take her," she screamed, directing her fury toward the figure, channeling every ounce of defiance she had. The flames flared higher, illuminating the corners of the room, casting grotesque shadows that twisted in agony. But it was not enough. The figure laughed again, a cruel sound that cut through the din of the fire. "This is only the beginning, little flame-bearer. You think you're strong? The darkness has its ways." Time slipped through her fingers, the weight of its words pressing against her mind. Evelyn's small frame trembled, her eyes wide with fear, and that broke Sarah more than any horror could. "Stay with me." Sarah pushed, desperation flooding her voice, her body trembling with the flame's heat now merging with her own fear. "We'll fight through this together." The figure recoiled slightly, a hint of uncertainty flickering in its gaze, but then it lunged, the weight of shadows threatening to pull them under once again. "Mom, I'm scared," Evelyn whimpered softly, the innocence in her voice breaking through the chaos. "I'm here." Sarah breathed deeply, feeling the fire's heat surge in defiance. But shadows swarmed in again, this time wavering the very foundation of Sarah's will. Would this be the moment the darkness claimed them? As the flames flickered wildly, Sarah felt reality shift, pulling her and Evelyn with it toward the precipice. What if they were too late? Then, through the din, she caught a whisper, a distant, familiar voice calling from the depths of the dark. It was Jake's, but it didn't sound right. "You have to accept it, the shadows are a part of you," the room spun, the ground shaking beneath them. As the figure advanced, claws reaching, Sarah knew she had to make a choice. But which path would lead to survival, and which to despair? And in that moment, reality blurred, a darkness wrapping its tendrils around her mind. Would she succumb to the shadows, or could she harness their power and turn it against them? The shadows quivered, writhing as if alive, flickering dangerously in rhythm with Sarah's jangled nerves. Every breath felt like a battle against the darkness tightening around her, its chill seeping into her bones. Evelyn's tiny form trembled beside her, the fear that radiated from her echoing in the chamber of nightmares. "Mom, please fight." Evelyn's voice was barely above a whisper, saturated with dread. "I'm trying." Sarah responded, heart racing, the fire sputtering, becoming less reliable with each passing moment. She clung to the ember within her, willing it to grow, to fend off the encroaching darkness. But the shadows coiled closer, whispering sweet promises of surrender, their voices a creeping dread swirling through her mind. "You need to let go," the figure crooned, its smile grotesque as it loomed ever closer. "Embrace the darkness, Sarah. You felt its embrace before, let it swallow you." With every word, it drew nearer, as if seeking to envelop her in its cold grip. The torment of her past, the loss and regret, all rushed back like a tidal wave. It was true, a part of her craved the shadows, the depths of despair felt strangely comfortable, like an old friend wrapping around her. "Mom!" Evelyn cried, clutching Sarah's arm, her knuckles white. "Don't listen to it." The fire flickered, struggling against an unseen current. Sarah's eyes darted to the figure, and in that moment, she saw not just terror, but something else, fear mirrored back at her. This creature thrived on despair, yet here it was, quaking under the incandescent flames. "Jake!" she shouted, searching for his presence through the chaos. "What do I do?" "Fight it. Don't be afraid." His voice sought her out, struggling to pierce through the chaos, filled with urgency. Forcing herself to breathe, Sarah focused on the flame coursing through her, feeling its heat raging like an inferno of determination. "I will not give in." She howled, unleashing a burst of fire that shot out like a comet, illuminating caverns of shrouded dread. The shadowy figure faltered, but then laughed, a chilling, dissonant sound. "You think this will save you?" With eyes wide and defiance burning, Sarah pressed the attack, pushing through her own fears, channeling everything into her flames. The barrier between light and dark thinned, and she felt an electric surge fill the room. She was the fire, and in that moment, she was unstoppable. The shadows hissed as they recoiled from the blaze, the room quaking in protest. But just as she thought she had gained the upper hand, the ground below them shattered, an abyss yawning wide. Evelyn screamed, caught off balance, as tendrils of darkness shot forward to snatch at her ankles. No! Sarah lunged, snatching her daughter just in time, pulling her away from the brink of a maw that seemed to devour light itself. The shadows writhed with a furious intensity, growing more desperate as their prey slipped from their grasp, but then, a warmth blossomed in Sarah's chest. "Evelyn!" she shouted. "Take my hand." With trembling fingers, Evelyn grasped her mother's hand, and in that moment of unity, something shifted. The flames swelled, washing over them in an infernal wave that cast the shadows back with fierce determination. Together, they became a beacon, combating the darkness that swirled like a cyclone, hungry for despair. Suddenly, the figure screamed, more a howl of anguish than a laugh. "You can't escape your fate. You'll always return to us." Sarah felt the ground lurch beneath her as if the very world revolted against their flames, but they stood firm, hands clasped together, fueled by unyielding love. But just as she thought they had a chance, the walls began to shift, the darkness morphing into images from her past memories of loss, of choices that had haunted her. Voices echoed, taunting and mocking her resolve. "Sarah," the figure hissed, slithering through the cracks of her resolve, "do not forget the shadows are a part of you." With every ounce of her being, Sarah clung to her daughter, but the laughter echoed in her mind, persistent and cruel. "Mom!" Evelyn's voice broke through again, more urgent now, pulling Sarah back from the brink. It was enough to jerk her from the memories threatening to consume her, but what if the darkness truly had a piece of her? What if all her fighting was futile, destined to lead her back to despair? As the shadows surged forward anew, a dreadful realization settled in. Could they fend off this creature of nightmares? Or were they already too late, teetering on the edge of hopelessness? The flames flickered weakly as shadows engulfed them, and Sarah's heart raced, caught between light and dark, between fight and surrender. "Mom, don't let go." Evelyn's cry rang out, but in the next moment, the figure lunged. Desperation twisted in Sarah's chest. Could she truly embrace the shadows to save her daughter? The darkness beckoned, and in an instant, she would have to decide, to fight or to fall. Would the fire she wielded hold? Or would she be snagged in the inexorable pull of the shadow's embrace? The shadows twisted, stretching as if they had a life of their own, lurking at the edges of Sarah's vision. She could feel the weight of their gaze, a suffocating blanket of dread pulling her further into the abyss. Evelyn squeezed her hand, panic reflected in her wide eyes, as the lingering promises of surrender echoed through the air like a morbid lullaby. "Mom, please!" Evelyn cried, her voice trembling against the growing silence that enveloped them. Fighting the urge to let go, Sarah tightened her grip. "I won't let you go," she shouted, pushing the words outward, desperate for them to cut through the impending doom. The figure wavered, its flesh like the surface of a pond disturbed by a stone. "You think your love is enough?" it sneered, shards of shadow cascading around it like dark feathers. "You're still tethered to your pain. That will always bring you back to me." Snap! Something cracked within her, like a promise broken. Memories flooded back, the warmth of Jake's laughter, the way he held her when the world felt too heavy. And then the emptiness his absence choked her, bursting open wounds she thought had healed. With every recollection, the shadows grew, eager to drag her down into the depths of her own grief. "Mom, remember what we talked about," Evelyn shouted, her voice rising above the sinister fluttering of darkness. "You can fight this. We can fight this." Fear and love collided in Sarah's heart. The flames inside flickered weakly but still glowed with the strength of her resolve. "You're right," Sarah breathed, steering her thoughts back to the fire, the warmth radiating from within her until it coursed through her veins. Each ember a memory of joy, of laughter, of purpose. "Get away from us," Sarah shouted, her voice rising with the strength of her own spirit, igniting her flames in a brilliant burst. The room around them lit up like it was midday, flames hungry and fierce, twisting the shadows into cacophonies of shrieks and howls. but the figure retaliated, morphing again. There's no light without darkness, Sarah. You can't escape what you are. Sarah felt herself falter, her breath hitching. What if the shadows were right? What if she was only a flicker, bound to return to them? A shudder ran through her, and for a fleeting moment, she wavered. But then Evelyn held her gaze, holding her steady. "Mom. Please," Evelyn said, shaking, her voice shaky but pleading through a gaze of unwavering belief. "I need you. Don't let it take you." The warmth of their bond surged, igniting a wildfire of determination. With renewed courage, Sarah faced the figure, the shadows curling maliciously around it, still trying to disturb her mind. "Whatever you think you are, whatever you promised me," Sarah's voice rang out boldly, cutting through the shadows. "I will not surrender." In a furious eruption, the fire roared to life, bursting forth with a catastrophic explosion that split the air. Tendrils of flame chased the darkness back, throwing them into disarray. But amid the blaze, the figure's howls intensified, a visceral eruption of terror. "Your past will always find you." It screamed, the ground trembling beneath them as dark fissures cracked open, threatening to swallow everything whole. The flames responded, a relentless wall of fire radiating from Sarah's core, refusing to give way. As shadows retreated, the very fabric around them began to distort, reality warping like a funhouse mirror. Each moment stretched painfully, every breath a struggle. "Evelyn, hold on!" Sarah shouted, nearly drowning under the weight of despair crashing around her. Fire licked her skin, but she had become the flame, a blazing force against the consuming darkness. Yet there, amid the heat, as the shadows faltered, a new whisper reached her ears, the cold reminder of her past. Dark shapes danced at the edges of her sight, taunts spilling from their sinister lips. "You will fall back into despair, Sarah. Not if I can help it." She shouted defiantly, but a hollow laugh echoed deeper within her, and once again, panic surged, a reminder of how close she was to the edge of losing it all. The shadows surged violently, snapping like a coiled serpent prepared to strike. The very air burned with tension, and she felt the world tipping. "Mom!" Evelyn screamed again, but beneath it all, Sarah could hear the distress creeping into her daughter's voice, the fear of losing everything. Just then, a flicker of memory, a child's laughter, a joyous breath, warmth filling her heart. They had something stronger than despair. They had each other. With that thought, Sarah focused, channeling her fear into fire, defiance into purpose. A heart-wrenching determination surged through her as she understood the truth: the shadows thrived on her pain only when she let them in. But was it enough? Narrowing her eyes, she turned fully to face the figure, bracing for the final stand. The darkness howled, thrashing like a tempest at her resolve. Fear loomed just beyond her control, and for a split second, she feared the shadows would swallow her whole. In that split heartbeat, as the walls around them trembled, Sarah prepared not just to fight, but to confront the very wound that still bled in her heart. If darkness was a part of her, then perhaps it was time to redefine their terrible bond. Would she harness that darkness or be consumed by it? And when the moment arrived to confront her true self, would Evelyn's hand still be there to guide her? The shadows recoiled, momentarily daunted by Sarah's fire, but they writhed and pulsed with newfound ferocity, as if sensing her doubt. The laughter from the figure twisted, a sickening mockery of joy tainted by sorrow. "You think this flame can save you? It is but a flicker against eternal night." "Not if I can help it," Sarah ground out, but even to her own ears, her voice sounded strained. Evelyn's grip tightened, and Sarah felt it a desperate need to protect her child, to shield her from the taint of darkness creeping ever closer. "Trust me, Evelyn," she shouted over the din of shadows and screams, forcing her heart to steady. Together we can face this." With a fierce surge, Sarah summoned the warmth pooling in her chest and sent burning tendrils outward. They flew beyond her grasp, seeking the depths of darkness that encircled them, hungry for escape. But the shadows screamed back, slashing the air with chilling fingers, stretching and clawing for the two of them. You belong to me. You are nothing without your sorrow. Darkness swirled around them, thick and oppressive, as the figure loomed closer. Its shape pulsed like a living thing, absorbing the light that battled against it. Sarah felt a chill creep down her spine. Each word, each taunt struck a familiar chord, echoes of her own doubts that gnawed at her resolve. Evelyn's voice pierced through the chaos again, trembling yet fierce. Mom, please. You're stronger than this. Remember how we fought our way through it before. Glimmers of their shared laughter flickered through her mind, softening the ache of loss. How many nights had they spent talking, bringing comfort to each other's wounds? The threads of their bond stronger than any darkness, brighter than any shadow. Think of Jake. Evelyn urged, her voice fraying, but full of shimmering hope. He loved you. He wouldn't want this for you. Jake's laughter echoed in Sarah's heart, filling spaces once drowned in grief. Tears stung her eyes, a mix of sorrow and strength. In that moment, she understood. The weight of darkness was rooted in her sorrow, yes, but so was her fierce love. Jake had not just left her with pain, he had left her with memories, with joy, and a realization of the light she still carried. Jake, I'm still here, Sarah whispered, his name a lifeline. And so are you, Evelyn. With renewed purpose, she turned her fiery gaze back to the figure. You're right about one thing. I know the darkness. But it does not define me. I'll never surrender to the pain again. The flames erupted from her heart, lancing outwards with blinding ferocity, pushing the shadows back until they writhed against an invisible barrier. The figure screamed, a piercing wail that sent rattles of fear coursing through the very air. Rara F. You think you can escape this fate? You cannot fight what you are, what you've lost. Maybe not. Sarah yelled, her voice straining against the onslaught, but I can fight for what I have left. For my daughter. For love. I will face it all. As she spoke those words, a brilliant flame erupted, consuming the darkness in a storm of heat and light. It burst forward with a force so powerful it felt like the sun had ingested their fears whole. But then Sarah felt a backlash, a biting cold as the shadows flung out, desperate and thrashing for release, snapping like wild dogs. The room shook, and the walls began to crumble. Hold on, Evelyn. Sarah screamed, desperately reaching out for her daughter. The flames roared, seeking to reclaim the shadows, but the ground bucked beneath them, the barriers between worlds cracking open. Mom, it's too much. I can't. Before Evelyn could finish, the shadows grew thicker, wrapping around her tiny frame, as if they were a living thing eager to snatch her away. Let her go. Sarah cried, feeling her heart splinter into shards at the sight. In that moment of pure terror, something inside her twisted, a feeling that she recognized. It was the fear of losing everything all over again. The desperation ignited. Sarah steadied herself, the fire raging within her keener than ever before, a power that leaped through her veins and whispered of hope. Help me, Jake. I want to let her go. The name echoed into the abyss as the flames began to spiral higher, merging with the very essence of her love and unyielding strength. But was it too late? The ground quaked more violently, the tendrils of dark pulling tighter around Evelyn. Sarah's heart raced as she took a shaky step forward, her voice choked with anguish and resolve. Evelyn, I'm coming for you. Would the darkness release its grip, or was this the beginning of an end she feared most? The shadows danced, hungry, waiting for Sarah's final decision. The darkness pressed in, blanketing the room with its suffocating weight. Sarah's heart pounded faster, every beat a reminder of the battle they were waging. Evelyn was still caught in the grasp of shadows, her innocent voice quaking with fear. Mom! She cried, reaching out, panicked tears streaming down her face. Hold on, sweetheart. Sarah shouted, the adrenaline surging through her veins. With every ounce of strength, she roared, I want to let you take her. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the shadows hissed, twisting as if to mock her resolve. Sarah felt the fire ignite fiercely within her, a burning determination that pushed against the darkness. This was not merely about her fear or despair, it was about her love, her connection to Evelyn, and everything worth fighting for. The figure loomed closer, its presence suffocating, darkness swirling around it like a tempest. You can't fight what's inside you, Sarah. You're just prolonging the inevitable. The whispers clawed at her mind, but she wouldn't let them in. Not this time. No. She screamed, defiance rising in her voice. I choose love over fear. With that declaration, Sarah thrust her hands out, channeling the fierce warmth flooding her core. Flames erupted, dancing, swirling, leaping forth like a proud phoenix challenging the abyss. The tendrils of shadow recoiled, shrieking in agony as the fire licked at their inky edges. No! You cannot escape. The figure howled, its voice shrill, desperately clawing at the light. Sarah pushed forward, planting her feet firmly. She summoned all her pain, all her grief and all her joy, everything she had ever felt, focusing it through the flames. Let her go. Sarah's roar sliced through the chaos, carrying more power than she thought possible. Unleashed, the fire became blinding, a radiant wall of searing light that surged forward, engulfing the figure and the shadows swirling around it. The figure screamed, its form distorting, twisting as the flames burned away at its essence. You will pay for this. It cried, but Sarah felt strength flooding her body, the connection to Evelyn never waning. We are stronger together. Evelyn's tiny hand slipped free of the pull of shadows, reaching for her mom. Mom, I'm scared. She cried again, but Sarah wouldn't let that fear consume her. Just trust me, baby. Keep your eyes on me. With one mighty surge, Sarah thrust her hands once more toward the shadows, forcing the flames higher. The room lit up in an explosive burst of fierce radiance. The walls shook, shadows writhed and screamed, burning away under the light. Suddenly, there was a crack, a thunderous roar that echoed like a shattering glass. The figure twisted in agony, and the ground beneath them splintered. A rift opened wide, darkness swallowing remnants of broken pane, whispers fading into silence. As shadows dissipated, an eerie calm settled, leaving only flickers of warmth in the aftermath. Mom! We did it! Evelyn's voice rang with pure joy, her small form jumping toward Sarah, who caught her with open arms. Relief flooded through Sarah, warmth wrapping itself around them both in a comforting embrace. Yes. We're safe. She cried, laughter bursting forth like a melody, driving away the last echoes of despair. Jake appeared from the remnants of Shadow's reach, free now, his eyes bright and clear. You did it, he said, his voice steady and filled with warmth. You conquered the darkness. The smile on Sarah's face reflected gratitude, wonder at how far they'd come. I couldn't have done it without you, she whispered, looking into his eyes. You're free now. Jake reached for Sarah's hand, but she shook her head slightly. Not just me. Together, we can move forward. The past, it doesn't define our future. But we need to remember. The warmth from the flames lingered, their power not just born from fire but from every cherished moment shared, every memory worth holding tightly. As the remnants of shadows melted into nothingness, the house felt lighter, the air clearer. Sarah looked down at Evelyn, whose bright eyes sparkled with hope. I love you, honey. Sarah said softly, pulling her daughter close. Evelyn beamed back, all innocence and resilience. I love you too, Mom. Forever and always. And at that moment, standing amidst the ashes of their fears, Sarah knew they would be okay. They would heal, grow, and forge a path beyond the dark, both together and with Jake by their side. With a gentle squeeze of their hands, they stepped out into the light of a new day, ready to embrace whatever came next. The shadows? Nothing but echoes of the past, fading away with every step forward they took. Now, remember that moment. It's the start of something incredible. If you want to be part of the next chapter, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss our next exclusive stories that will blow your mind. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us spread the word. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what you just witnessed. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this epic conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.